Okay, Gateway, I want you to use your imagination with me just for a moment. I want you to come to a place that many of you are trying so hard to forget. Some of you, it's a dark place. It's a place that some of you are spending lots of money with a therapist trying to figure out what even happened. With your imagination, I want you to come back with me to middle school. It's worse than you thought, right? You know, when you were, an awkward, pimply-faced preteen, in an awkward body that doesn't quite fit, which is, by the way, coursing with hormones. Welcome to middle school. More specifically, I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine the middle school dance. Okay? You know what I'm talking about. The dimly lit gymnasium, sparsely decorated, filled with all your friends and the people that you're trying to impress. And really, in the gym, there's two types of people there, right? First of all, in the center of the gym is this tightly packed, rowdy group of teenagers that are having this tag team dance-off. Remember that? Where one person would jump in and they do their moves, the sprinkler, the Roger Rabbit, the running man. There's that one dude that always does the worm. He doesn't look like he could do a worm, but it's like amazing. You walk away and say, oh man, that was amazing. And then after each person would do their moves, everyone, it would erupt in roars of laughter and applause, and the next person would go, and the next person would go, and the next person would go. And this, by definition, was the middle school dance. But that only represented one person at the dance. You see, not everybody at the dance was in the dance circle. You already know where I'm going, don't you? There was another person at the dance, and that's the person I like to call the wall clinger. Okay, the people who sought safety and haven in the dark shadows of the room. They were either, maybe they had no dancing skills whatsoever, or maybe just extreme social anxiety, but they just stayed glued to the wall. And it's funny because in the middle school scene, you had all the guys on one wall and all the girls on the other wall. It was like this self-imposed segregation. But let's have a moment of honesty here, okay? Those of you in this room, if you were the middle school party animal, you were there in the dance circle, raise your hand so we can see which ones you were, okay? There's a few of you, those were your glory days, right? Okay. And now let me ask the others. Which ones of you were the wall clingers, the one who sought haven in the dark corners? You didn't move except to get some more punch or to go to the bathroom. Raise your hand if you were the wall clingers. Okay, good. Hey, I get it. I'm with you. I was also a wall clinger. I remember my 8th grade dance like it was yesterday. The memory is seared onto my consciousness. I'll never forget it. I remember all week long leading up to the dance, I was so nervous. The day of, my stomach was in knots. And then the actual night of, it was the longest 3 hours of my life. I'm not even sure why I was there. I was a wall clinger. I know my friends were there, and I felt like it was one of those things that you couldn't not be there. But I had a hope. I had a dream, and her name was Sarah. It's always a girl, isn't it? Now, some of you who know me are probably thinking like, oh my gosh, you married your 8th grade sweetheart? No, there were several Sarahs in my life. It's kind of a weird thing. I wasn't ready for the Sarah yet, but that was my hope. And I was just a scared little boy with an ounce of courage, hoping for the opportunity to have a dance with my 8th grade crush. I tell you what, let me take you there. Let's get the lighting right. Okay, let's get the lights. Okay, very good, very good. And it was the end of the evening, and it was the final song, and it was the perfect song. When I hear this song today, it takes me back to the 8th grade moment of glory. Let's play that song now. You're feeling it, aren't you? So this is a little about what happened here. There she is. Hey Sarah. You're here, and this great song. Would you like to dance with me? Yeah. Like your shoes. Okay. That's enough. You know. It's funny because you remember it. So you know what? It was awful, it was painful, but it was the greatest moment of 8th grade. it was wonderful. And you know, if I had a chance to go back and have a conversation with 8th grade Kenny, I think this is what I would say. I said, Kenny, why are you being a wall clinger? You're at the dance, so dance. Like, see all those idiots in the center of the gym? Sorry for those of you who raise your hand, no offense. They don't know how to dance. They're just having a good time. Jump in there, join them. See Sarah over there? Go over, talk to her. Dance with her. You're at the dance, so dance. Don't you realize where you are? You are here. Do something. Wise wisdom from future Kenny. This is what I'd say. But you know what? As we're here today in 2015 at Gateway Church, I survey our church in the audience, and this is what I would say. Something very similar. We're at the dance, but not everybody is dancing. When it comes to your church experience, what person are you? Are you right there in the center of it all, the epicenter of activity? Or are you the wall clinger? Are you settling for something far less than what your Gateway experience should and could be? Gateway, you are here. So do something. You know, last week, John kicked off this whole conversation. He began talking about serving, and he uses Jesus as example when Jesus donned the towel and got on his hands and knees and began to wash the feet of his disciples. And John talked about in this message, we learned that the path to greatness begins by serving someone else. And that we never look more like Jesus until we actually put the needs of someone else above our own. You know, but I think I get it. I understand. I know what's going on in your head, I think. Okay, I talk to people every week about serving, and I hear the legitimate points of resistance. I mean, there's several things. You know, first of all, people say, there's no time. There's just no time between the kids and the activities and the sports and the school, all those things. There's just not time to serve. Or, you know, or some people actually say, they walk into a place like Gateway and they see all the things that are happening and they say, you don't need me. Like, this looks like a well-oiled machine. This is great. What do you need me for? Or some people say, someone else can do it. I've served for you don't know how long. My turn's up. It's time for someone else to do it. Or some people legitimately say, I tried. I filled out your card. I sent the email. I made the phone call, and nobody got back to me. It's not my fault. I tried. Or some people maybe over-spiritualize it, and they say, you know, I don't really feel called to serve at this time. You know, it's easy to say no. And you know, sometimes it's a no because you got a lot of really other good options on your plate right now. And maybe it's just a no right now, but hopefully it'll be a yes later. But some of you have been saying no for a really long time. And maybe I didn't give the example of what your no might be, but you know what it is. And you're hanging on to a no. And maybe possibly even by your silence, you're saying no. And you know what? There's a tension here. You feel it, and I feel it. Your heart says yes, but your circumstances say no. And I see this tension played out every time we do a volunteer expo or give people an opportunity to sign up and begin serving here at Gateway. Usually more than half of the cards that we turn in, they never actually turn into an opportunity to serve. You know, many of those people, they never even return our phone call or email. And we get it, we know what's happened. Your heart has said yes, but some circumstance has changed and slowly your yes has become a no. However, I think there's something that most of us haven't ever considered. It's something that could change everything. And it's not just a contrived reason by me to try to get you to give Gateway more of your time, but there's actually a secret to service that most people don't know, and it's revolutionary. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, I want to introduce you to my friend Ben, and he's going to talk about how his no became a yes. So everyone give a big hand to my friend Ben Burrich. So Ben, tell everyone here what it is that you do around here at Gateway.
I do a couple different things. I work with the recovery on Thursday night. I lead there. I also lead on Sundays for the 10th grade boys, as well as help in the parking lot. But really, I just, I show up and help out where I can.
So you're like a superstar. So I mean, you do more than a lot of people do. I think you might do more than I do.
That's probably true.
Have you always been one of those guys that you just overachiever, you take on everything?
Absolutely not. I'm probably the underachiever. For me, my no stems from a really broken place. I'm an addict. I'm a recovering addict, and there are lots of places where I'm just not good enough. I'm broken. I got nothing to offer anybody. But God, He says yes to me all the time. The world says no. He says yes. He says you are worthy. You are worthy of a king's ransom all the time.
So what specifically changed for you that changed your no to a yes?
What specifically changed? There are a lot of things. For me, I think probably the biggest thing has been being in recovery. Step 12 says, having had a spiritual experience, as a result of these steps, we continue to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So for me, there's having to be willing to be available for people, answering phone calls middle of the night, stuff like that, love people, counsel people. That encompasses the heart of a servant.
You see, Ben has a pretty amazing story because it's his very past that shouted no. But as he began to recover and as he began to heal, it was his past that began to make it an amazing yes. Now, I think there's lots of people here that they're hanging on to a reason of why they shouldn't serve.
Sure.
What would you speak into their resistance to say yes?
I started working in the cafe when we had one, and I didn't feel like, this is an amazing thing happening in my life. I'm selling people Cokes. But God kept me being there and seeing that, that there were people that I kept getting connected with, smiling with, seeing, becoming familiar faces with. And I don't know what happened, but it made something happen. My heart changed, their heart changed. But now, he's used me for other things. I'm leading other addicts. I'm leading 10th grade boys. That blows my mind. And I help you guys get across in the parking lot. To me, anything could happen. When the world says no, God says yes, and He makes really amazing things happen. So if I could say anything to anybody, say yes to something. Just say yes. It'll change everything.
Awesome. Give Ben a big hand. And you know what? I am so glad that Ben said yes. Aren't you glad that Ben said yes? There's so much about Ben's story that may be similar to your story, that you felt disqualified to say yes, but there's something amazing about that. There's a million reasons to say no, but there's something amazing, something beyond belief on the other side of a yes. See, last week, John talked about the benefits of serving. He talked about how often you get more out of it than you actually give, but that's not the bigger thing on the other side of a yes. It's bigger than that, and I want to share that with you today. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time in one of the parables that Jesus told, and it starts in Matthew 25. Jesus is teaching on the Mount of Olives. He's telling parable after parable after parable, the faithful and wise servant, the 10 bridesmaids, the talents, the parable of the talents. And in each of these parables, it's kind of foreshadowing the end times of what's going to happen in the end. And every single one of these parables, it kind of sets up the idea that there's a master and he's gone away and one day he will return. Nobody knows the time, but he will come again. And those of us who are left, we're doing everything that we can to make the most of the opportunity to be prepared for when he comes back. And it is this crescendo that leads up to this final parable, the parable of the sheep and the goats, and it resolves all these parables before it. So let me read it to you now. It's found in Matthew 25, 31 through 46. It says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Now imagine the scene just for a second. Here's Jesus. He's sitting on his throne in heaven, and all of humanity is gathered before him. And one by one, he's separated all the people into two groups, the sheep and the goats. The sheep on his right, the goats on his left, is the people who chose to follow Christ and the people who rejected Christ. In the scriptures, this is significant. In the scriptures, the right hand is usually associated with the blessing, and the left hand is associated with the curse. And so here's what happens next. Then the king will say to those on his right, to the sheep, come, you who are blessed by my Father, Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And then the righteous answered him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick in prison and go and visit you? See, this parable, this sets up a really odd situation. So the righteous, Jesus had just bestowed the greatest gift of all of eternity. He kicked open the gates to heaven and said, come, your inheritance awaits you. But there's a murmur in the crowd. There's confusion in the crowd. Because Jesus is listing all these different ways of where the righteous had taken care of him and provided for him. And they're confused because they don't remember doing that. And they begin to ask Jesus, when did we do those things? When were you naked? When were you hungry? When were you thirsty? When did we do that? And Jesus answers in verse 40, the king will reply, truly, I tell you, whatever you did for the least of one of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Let me read that again. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Fascinating. I mean, think about that for a moment. Think about the implications of that statement. Now, let's put a bookmark there, and we'll come back to it in just a second. We're going to continue this parable. Now, this is where the parable takes a dark turn, that Jesus is about to say the things that we don't put on our Christian t-shirts. And then he turns to those on his left and he says, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me. And they will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you? And he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for the least of these, you did not do for me. And then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. And you know, people often get tripped up when they hear this parable. And they begin to concoct what it actually means in their mind, and they begin to put together this theology of, okay, if I do good things, if I take care of the sick, if I feed the hungry, and I do all these things, then I get to go to heaven. It says so right here in the Bible. But no. That's not the context of this verse. That's not what it means. It's in the context of other things that Jesus and his disciples have said. Eternal salvation is based on faith, not good works. Works don't get you into heaven. And let me say that again just to make sure we're clear. Your good deeds do not get you into heaven. Only putting your faith in the grace that Jesus offers gives us access to the kingdom of heaven. And in this parable and passage, it describes that good works are the result of a relationship with Jesus Christ. Followers of Christ by nature should treat others with kindness, serving them as if they are serving Christ himself. But again, the central point of this parable isn't who gets to go to heaven and who doesn't. It's these words of Jesus, truly I tell you, whatever you've done for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you have done for me. Jesus is saying that when we serve those in need, we serve him. As I was studying for this message, I came across this quote. It's amazing. So the kingdom of heaven shows up where we least expect it. The presence of Jesus is hidden in the sick, the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, and the imprisoned. See, serving isn't just a good idea. It's not just the path to greatness. It's not just the thing that needs to be on our to-do list of things that we should be doing. No, it's far more personal than that. The very presence of Jesus is found when we serve the needs of others. There's an opportunity of connection to God that is so much greater than just sitting in here and listening to great messages. If coming here and this right here is it for you, you're settling for so much less than what God has for your life. It's true. We're all seeking God's presence, all of humanity in one way or another. And we expect to find it in the worship service, which we do. And we expect to find his presence in a Bible study, which it can be found there. But there's something pure and beautiful about finding the presence of Jesus in the midst of serving someone who needs help. You see, Jesus was giving us a sneak peek at the end times in Matthew 25. And here's what he said. Jesus doesn't recognize the guy who memorized all these scripture verses. And Jesus doesn't recognize the girl who had near perfect church attendance. And Jesus isn't recognizing the person who read their Bible and prayed every day. Those are all good things and those are all right things, but not at the expense of serving others. Don't you see it? Don't be a wall clinger. You are here. Do something. When you serve others, you serve Jesus. Now, this isn't the only place where we find this idea. There's several verses that reference the same thing. I want to share with you one of my favorite verses, and it resonates to me. I've given my life to serving kids and students and investing in people who serve kids and students. And so this verse has special meaning to me. It's similar to a passage that John read last week. And it's this time when the disciples they're arguing about who should be the greatest, who should get the first seat next to Jesus. And here's how Jesus responds in Mark 9:35 through 37. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all." He took a little child whom he placed among them. Taking the child in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me." You see, Jesus had this beautiful gift of being able to live in the moment and making point out of simple things that he saw in the environment. And here the disciples were arguing about who the greatest is. And Jesus reached over and he grabbed a little child and put it in his arms. And I'm sure it maybe was an awkward thing. Like the disciples like, "What are you doing?" Jesus, "We're having an important conversation here. Can you put that kid away?" But don't miss this. The distraction was the point. And as Jesus is holding this little child, he said, "Whoever welcomes a child like this welcomes me." So I have this question in my head. It's a very noisy question. It's screaming at me. Who's too busy to welcome Jesus? You know, there's a million reasons why you should say no to serving, but I can't think of a single reason why we would say no to Jesus. You know, after having these verses in my head all week, I've kind of concocted these comical situations in my head. I'll share a couple of them here with you. I'm just kind of imagine, and I don't think I'm out of line too much. Jesus was using the same kind of progression, so I think I'm safe here. But just imagine, like, you know, you're coming to church one Sunday and you pull into your parking spot and you get out, and there in the parking lot you see Jesus in the flesh. Now it's 2015, so it's probably hipster Jesus, but he's there, okay? And he looks at you and he puts his hand on your shoulder and says, "Hey, I'm here today. I'm serving in guest services, making coffee and hugging necks and shaking hands. Would you serve with me today? We're a little short-handed. Would you serve with me?" You know, Jesus, I haven't been to church in about 3 weeks and the worship is my favorite. So I think I'm going to pass, maybe next week. No, I can't imagine a world where we wouldn't drop everything and said, "Really? Yes." Or maybe you're dropping off your preschoolers and kids and you're in the lobby and there's Jesus there and he comes over and he says, "Hey, I'm actually teaching the preschoolers today." Pretty cool, right? You're going to use puppets. No. As I'm going to hang out with your kids and, "Hey, come with me, serve with me." You're like, "Jesus, okay, let me be honest. Preschoolers aren't really my thing. Like, I like preschoolers. I have some, but not others. Mine's okay." No, we don't. I can't imagine that we wouldn't drop everything and say yes to Jesus. You know, if this parable that Jesus told in Matthew 25, if it's a true picture of what is to come, then it changes everything. It has true significance of serving today, and it should change our priorities. It should change our perspective. You see, here's the big idea that we should consider. That Jesus was a yes man. He was constantly saying yes. He said yes to kids. He said yes to the poor. He said yes to the rejects. He said yes to inconvenience. He said yes to uncomfortable situations. He said yes. Let me make this clear, maybe a little bit more clear, give you a picture. When you say yes to a preschooler, sure, you say yes to dirty diapers and snotty noses. You say yes to more questions than you ever have answers for. You say yes to little bitty arms and legs and loud voices and tantrums. But when you say yes to a preschooler, you say yes to Jesus. When you say yes to an addict, sure, you say yes to victories and you say yes to slip-ups. You say yes to excuses and lies, but you say yes to amazing recovery. When you say yes to an addict, you say yes to Jesus. When you say yes to a teenager, you say yes to drama and hormones, an unbelievable body odor. You say yes to video games, inconvenient text at 2 a.m. You say yes to breakups. But when you say yes to a teenager, you say yes to Jesus. You see, there's something amazing there. Can you see it? There's a million reasons why we should say no. But there's something amazing on the other side of a yes. Here's what it is. And it's even bigger than that. It's even bigger than saying yes to Jesus. Let me go back to that verse in Mark 9. He took the little child whom he placed among them. Taking the child in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. But whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me." This is a secret to saying yes. It's this incredible thing behind the yes. It's God. When we say yes to serving others, we welcome God the Father, our Creator. And it's something that you'll never get from just listening to a worship song. When you serve, you say yes, and you welcome the presence of God the Father. You see, Jesus showed us how to do it. Jesus showed us what would happen when we did it. So what's holding us back? There's a million reasons why we would say no. But there's something more amazing than you can imagine on the other side of a yes. I want to encourage you, just pick up your phone right now. We want to make it easy to say yes. You know, next week we're going to be doing these serve tours. We're doing some today, but we're going to do them next week and the following week. And we want to make it so easy for you to say yes. If you're interested maybe in serving in arts, then next week we'd like to have a tour where our art staff can cast vision for what it looks like to say yes here, to operate a camera or to run a soundboard or a light board or audition to sing or play an instrument. Or maybe you're interested in serving in guest services or campus support. And next week we have some serve tours where they'll cast vision for what it looks like to park cars and to greet people, to make people feel welcome, and all the amazing and wonderful behind the scenes ways that make people feel welcome here at Gateway. Or maybe you might be interested in serving and impacting kids and students. My Next Gen team would like to cast vision to you next week about what it looks like to say yes in the life of a teenager or a preschooler or an elementary age student. And you know, many of you serve in the city, maybe serve in recovery, and we want you to do those things. And we're glad that you do those things. But today we're focusing on about the 200 to 300 opportunities that we have available right here every single Sunday to serve those around us. Right now, if you're sitting here and you're not doing anything, we'd like to invite you to the dance. Just pick up your phone. And if you're ready to say yes, and this might be the hardest step of all, if you're ready to say yes, just text 80123 and text in the word Next Gen if you want to come next week to check out a Next Gen serving tour. Or type in 80123 and text the word guest to sign up for a guest serving tour next week. Or text 80123 and text the word arts to sign up for an arts serving tour next week. We'll send you the details. You'll get a confirmation text immediately after you send the text, and we'll let you know everything that you need to know about that. And you're completely allowed to send more than one text. Just send a different text to different keywords, and you can join us on more than one serving tour. Just take a step. Just give us a month. Give us 2 months to show you why you should say yes. You know, we often find sometimes that once people say yes and they step in, they realize that their no wasn't really a good reason at all. We got parents who serve with their kids, and so they're spending time together. We've got people who do volunteer work for us from home, all kinds of different ways that they can make an impact, and it's an amazing way to say yes. So say yes by sending them the text. And we'll see you next week at the tours. If you have any questions, we have our tent out in the courtyard, the You Are Here tent, and we can talk to you and answer questions we have. Say yes by serving, and say yes to Jesus.